Hello, guys, and welcome back to Social Day 2020, Day 2. I hope you've enjoyed this morning's sessions so far. They've been really great, haven't they? Don't forget today, there's 2 streams throughout the rest of the day until later, so you can choose the streams that you want to attend. This stream is stream 1 or the live stream, and it is Generation Cynic Simon Lucy, and the second stream is Instagram Battle Paid Fees Organic with Kirsty Smith, and Stuart's going to be over there introducing that session now if that's the one you want to watch. Please let me know how you got on in the booth. Did you talk to our sponsors? Let me know. Please comment and keep sharing everything you've learned on social media using the hashtag SocialDay20. So now let's get this next session started on time. So up now is Simon Lucy from Hype Collective, and they're going to be talking about Generation Cynic with his panel of that generation. So let's welcome Simon Lucy to the Social Day stage. Thank you, Simon. Over to Simon.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Social Chain, for that very impressive introduction. I really want a copy of that just to send to my mum. Today, I think we've got about 40 minutes with you. I'm going to be talking through a piece of research that we released last week called Generation Cynic. Before that, I'm just going to run through a very quick introduction to who we are, what we do as an agency, before getting onto the research. And we're going to finish off with a panel discussion. We've got 3 great students who've worked with Hype Collective over the last year, and they are going to be kind of giving their views on the research, and you'll have a chance to ask them any questions that you have. The research Generation Cynic, it was born out of a conversation in a pub, which dates it was before a long time ago. This discussion was if young people have access to unlimited information, does that make them better informed, and does it make them cynical about the world, or just well informed, and where's that line? So we commissioned a study looking at young people's attitudes specifically towards brands, the media, and influencers. So I'm going to talk you through the findings today. Before we do that, quick intro into Hype. So we are a student marketing agency. What that means is essentially if you're looking to target 16 to 24-year-olds in the UK, we are kind of experts in that audience. We really believe that that's a crucial stage in your life, and a huge amount of stuff kind of changes, whether it's going to university, whether it's going to an apprenticeship, whether it's college, and being experts in the world of education, we think gives us an advantage when planning marketing campaigns aimed at that audience. A big part of what we do is we operate a student network, our collective of students, who are a mixture of kind of brand ambassadors, who are promo staff, societies and sports teams that are looking to collaborate with brands, and then influencers. And we've got 3 great members of our collective for you at the end. I wanted to kind of give you a bit of an example of what we do.
The elderly are the UK's loneliest demographic. Students came in a close second. Research conducted by Student.com revealed 70% of students feel lonely at university. Both the students and care home residents live apart from family and close friends. Student.com wanted to do something to tackle the loneliness this causes. We launched Together by Student.com, a volunteering initiative that's paired students living in student accommodation and local care home residents. The campaign captured the hearts of the nation, generating over 140 pieces of coverage, including the BBC, The Guardian, The Telegraph and Channel 5, and reaching over 50 million people. More importantly though, it captured the hearts of local students too. With hundreds of applications to take part, students and residents were able to share experiences and create memories through long-term friendships. Together by Student.com is now nationwide and has a digital volunteering option during COVID-19.
So yeah, this is just an example of a recent campaign that we ran with Student.com. So Student.com are the world's biggest marketplace for student accommodation. So whether you're going to study in Derby, London or Beijing, you can find your accommodation through Student.com. And obviously back in the days pre-COVID, we were looking to do something a little bit more positive. And I think that campaign nicely shows that, like, I guess that audience understanding of kind of what they're looking for, and it isn't always what's played out in the media, is really important when you're planning a campaign. So that's enough from me about Hyper Collective. Obviously, if you're interested in that audience, feel free to give us a message. I love talking about this. I could talk about it for hours. I promise I'm not going to do that now. But I'm just going to give you a very quick overview of this research and a few key pointers that we've taken away from it. So in terms of the research, we do this research once every 3 to 4 months. I set up Hype 2.5 years ago, along with a business partner. And sadly, our student days are getting further and further away from us. And whilst it's fun to work off assumptions that, you know, the student world hasn't changed since Cardiff 2009, sadly, well, maybe not sadly, a lot of it's for the better, actually. The world has changed. So head to our website. There's loads to read there. This is a particular favourite of mine, which is the alcohol issue, dealing with this stereotype that these young kids don't drink and they're all just going to yoga with their avocados and whatever. If you don't want to read the whole thing, the synopsis is, yes, they do still drink. But yeah, looking to dispel some myths. So we do these kind of once every 3 to 4 months. And in terms of the numbers, we surveyed 1,000 16 to 24-year-olds. Roughly 50% of them were in full-time education and 50% of them were out of it. We were looking to kind of compare that. And we worked with an awesome steering group of brands that helped us to shape what the questions were to make it relevant. We don't just kind of crack on and do this. We actually produced this in partnership with an agency called The Park. Massive shout out to them. They're brilliant. They're an experiential first agency, and they kind of, I guess, their kind of whole thing is about creating brand proof. And I think that they brought a lot of kind of really deep level insight when you're looking at kind of this issue of trust and cynicism. In terms of our steering group, again, work with some awesome brands, TikTok, ITV, Co-op, Defected. All of these brands are doing really interesting things in the space, and were able to give us loads of insights, a lot of data, which helped us set up the research. So onto the research. I'm going to distill it down into 8 key findings. There's a hell of a lot more of it in the documents. I really would go on and read it. But yeah, first up, the first thing is we're looking at brands, and 71% of young people said that it is the right thing for brands to support social causes, which I think is not a massive surprise. You know, they think that it's, you know, morally, brands should be getting involved. They should be supporting social causes. However, there was a real level of cynicism about why brands are going to do that. So only 6% of young people, pretty much every young person that we spoke to when we were doing interviews said that they accept that brands are going to get involved, but they're doing it for commercial reasons. So it's not, they're not doing it for some sort of altruistic reason. Interestingly, you know, in this world of cancel culture and young people constantly, I think the stereotype that you'd see on Twitter is that young people are constantly calling out brands. Only 6% of young people would actually boycott a brand whose values don't align with their own. So whether or not having this big, strong moral purpose actually drives the bottom line, I'm a little bit skeptical, basically. And I think it really depends which space you're in. And then next up, interestingly, 24%. So I think this was the second or third highest answer to this question. 24% of young people say the most important thing a brand can do to promote causes is to share their platform. That came in higher than actually giving money. I'm pretty sure that whatever the cause is, whether it's the LGBT cause, Black Lives Matter, probably the thing that they want most is money, not a shout out on social. But the perception amongst young people was that this shout out has high value. So I really think that's interesting that, if you're a brand and you're talking about these issues, you're not, that is perceived to have value for these issues as a whole. So that really over-indexed for me. Next up, talking about the media. So 40% say that they will look for a second source to confirm any story that they've seen for a media outlet. Now, interestingly, that's actually lower than if they see it from a peer. So if they see something on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, they're more likely to check a second source. So, 40% isn't high. There's not huge levels of trust in the media, and I think the era of fake news is definitely here. But interestingly, they're more willing to trust something from a media outlet than they are from an individual, which goes against pretty much everything that you hear about trusting your peers constantly. I guess there's a real variety within peers. And, I know when my dad shares certain stuff on Facebook, I'm very, very cynical about it. Other people, you might have more trust in. And yeah, with this kind of the rise of kind of cynicism within the media, less than 1% say that they trust everything the media reports. I think it's just been, the story of the last 3 years is kind of fake news and Trump and the impact that is having. So I think we're at a stage where I think this level of cynicism is rising for, whether it's media or brand. But I think that the media landscape is changing quicker, basically. Interesting. Like when we got to talking about kind of what the purpose of a media is, and we were talking about kind of whether there's a requirement for media to be left wing and right wing, and to fight for different kind of opinions. Quite a significant proportion believe that the media should remain strictly objective and neutral, which I found kind of relatively surprising. I'd expect them to, whether or not it's stereotypically younger people are more likely to support left-leaning publications, I would have expected them to value the role that media have in campaigning for change. But a relatively significant number believe that the media should be neutral and objective. And then one of the things that I kind of was really interested in is this idea of transparency, and obviously the rise of TikTok is a lot less polished than Instagram, and we're thinking, do entrepreneurs and creators that are transparent about past failures, are they more trustworthy? Can you empathize with them more? And this was overwhelmingly yes. And this was something that was reflected in one of our discussions with one of the steering group that we were working with, Sony, the record label, and they were talking about 5 years ago when you're producing, or maybe even more, but when you're producing a massive pop star, so Harry Styles or something, when you first came on the scene, what you're looking to create is this perfect image of this perfectly crafted celebrity that's never done anything wrong, and is this kind of like perfect version of what the audience is. And now they're saying actually they're much more willing to take on people who have weaknesses, and they want them to be a lot more open about kind of their weaknesses and failures, and it makes them a lot more trustworthy. So I think that's something that I think brands can potentially learn from as well. I think it's obviously a very difficult brand to get involved with, but I think it's an interesting premise. And finally, 66% of young people are more likely to support a cause if an influencer they follow shares their own support. So I think like when we were running these questions about influencers, I was kind of ready to give influencers a good kicking. We thought that there'd be a level of cynicism from the audience. And one of the things that I want to talk about with our panel later is I think the perception that we get if you're working in marketing agency world is that influencers are all either have hundreds of thousands of followers are Love Island celebrities or they're beauty influencers, and there's a real level of cynicism from us towards some of those influencers, and I think actually a level of snobbery, especially when you look at all those stories about the government paying like Love Island influencers to promote track and trace. I mean, obviously, track and trace is a bit of a nightmare, but why not use celebrities to do that? But I think that there's a kind of a new breed of influencer that's much more common, which is maybe, I guess, more maybe an activist kind of element, somebody who has a significant following but wouldn't describe themselves as an influencer. And these are the people that are much more compelling to our audience. So I said that I was going to try and get through this in 15 minutes because I wanted to get our panel here. Remarkably, that's happened. That never happens. So I want to introduce our panel. We've got Kamsi, who's a student over at Queen Mary, Kate, who's at Leeds, and Chloe, who is at Imperial. All three of these have worked with us on like various campaigns in the past for like Adobe, Co-op. So I guess have a full understanding of the student culture that they're in, but also have been exposed to what brands are trying to do and slightly more the commercial side about it. So yeah, I'd like to introduce you guys across. That'd be great. Are we changing? I don't know whether you guys can see us. Kamsi, do you want to, let's start off with you, Kamsi. Do you want to, cool, we're here. Sweet. Technology, It's 2020, we love this. We were actually in a WhatsApp group, the four of us, just before this, and we were saying, I love Social Day, but I love it. I can't wait for it to be real. And not based on my Wi-Fi speed. That's what I'm looking forward to. Firstly, for the audience, if you could do feel free to send in your questions for the students and for me if you have any, or about the report. But I'm going to kick off talking a little bit about brands first. Yeah, Kamsi, I suppose, how do you feel about brands supporting social causes? Like, do you think any of them are doing it kind of for altruistic reasons, or like, you know, what are your thoughts?
I think the brands, when they do show their support for social causes, they're doing it more for the image of their company. Yeah. I think that it is done one person can look at it as in order to get people to support them, they have to show that they support those people. It's kind of a mutual exchange in a sense. It's business.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And Kate, do you agree? What like is it? Do you think there are any brands that are doing it for good reasons, or do you think they're all just doing it for their bottom line?
No, I feel like smaller businesses they take off. It's like it depends like how you've taken off on like this journey. Like I mean, a lot of the big brands that we'll shop at and we'll engage with are well established, and they didn't start off with the whole like we're an ethical, we're sustainable organization. They've moved towards that. I think it's particularly like with fashion and things like that. Now there's this increasing awareness that there is a cancel culture, and if you're not seen to be doing the right things, people won't shop with you. So like Kamsi said, it's kind of the mutual exchange kind of view that I think more well brands are now having to put on this whole like corporate social responsibility kind of angle to be able to capture this like growing audience now, especially with our age group.
So I guess this is just consumer power. Like young people are saying that they want ethical brands, and it's supply and demand. Like brands are moving towards it. Is there anything more? Like I guess we sit here. I remember once I was in a pitch for something, and we were scrabbling away it was for a toothpaste brand, and we were scrabbling away trying to think of this brand's brand purpose. And I was like, bloody hell, it's just toothpaste. I don't understand how we're going to like, you know, shoehorn this in. But like, do you think that's it? Is it just supplying, like young people say they want ethical brands, so that's where everyone's moving?
Yeah, I mean,
I think definitely. Oh no, you go.
Go for it.
So I definitely think now, like with TikTok and YouTube, a lot of people are posting about like packaging, or maybe I'm just on that, like that's just my For You page all the time. It's just people like showing how they pack their orders. And a big thing is like plastic and giving like small free gifts. And I think because people are seeing this, they're expecting more from companies. And these are just small like brands that are starting up on Etsy and their own like websites and things like that. So I think these bigger companies are seeing that these smaller companies are doing a lot better because they're much more interactive with their audience and consumer.
And
They're
so,
more responsive.
yeah. And so have you seen any brands that, I guess, 2020 has been a pretty wild year, what with COVID, Black Lives Matter, it's like an unbelievable year. Have you seen any brands like navigating that space particularly well or particularly badly? And what was it that kind of stood out to you? I'm going to pick on Kate.
I mean, I'm a bit of like an anti-fast fashion warrior at the moment. But I think like brands that are doing things wrong, like Chloe's touched on, like you're exposed like massive brands are exposed massively on TikTok. Like it's like a 15-second video or whatever, and you can be slated, and that can be liked and shared 1,000 times. And I feel.
Oh, we lost Kate. Kamsi,
Yeah.
I'm going to pick on you. Kamsi, have you seen, let's roll with it.
So like she was saying, a lot of brands become exposed to certain mistakes that they've made. And it's important that these brands or these influencers address their past failures, because we're then able to empathize or sympathize with them as they're being vulnerable. When they're so if say, for example, if Nike was doing something wrong, or for example, Amazon, who some people would post on TikTok, someone posted on TikTok saying, oh, I just got next day delivery. Imagine how much work goes into that day to get that product to your door at the same day or the next day. Someone posted a video on TikTok talking about that, posted, shared like millions of times, and loads of people get to see that. Loads of people are exposed to that mistake that Amazon makes. And because Amazon isn't taking that, isn't addressing that flaw that has now been exposed to us, a lot of us would feel maybe we shouldn't be doing this, we shouldn't be ordering it so much, but I don't think about it a lot, so much that I'm never going to order from Amazon again, because I still go on there to get a few things I need.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's probably a social media manager at Amazon who is having an absolute nightmare dealing with all this like TikTok hate about their. But at the end of the day, the guy that runs the finances at Amazon is happy days, isn't he? Because they're just flying. So it's this. I think it's a really interesting area to balance. That it's this balance of convenience versus ethics. And there's some areas, I think, especially with like maybe more luxury items. I guess, Kate, with fashion, like you're maybe a bit more willing to pay for the higher quality, ethical brand. But then, I just ordered some like cutlery from Amazon, and I just can't be bothered to like. I just want it. Is that how you kind of see it, Chloe? What are your thoughts?
Definitely. I think quality, especially Amazon, it's just easy. You just type it in, and I'll probably just buy the first thing that's there. Yeah. Whereas if I go for like clothing, slightly different. I don't think I'd buy anything off Amazon necessarily, unless it's branded, so like Nike, whatever, so I know what the quality is going to be like. I'm more likely to shop at brands I do like. But then again, I do notice that even though some things are cheap, like Primark, I do like shopping there, but I've learnt my lesson. The quality isn't great, so I think it is worth spending a bit more money to get that better quality clothing, and maybe like support a smaller company as well, which I think is important.
And are there any brands that you guys just would never shop at?
Kate, I'll pick you. So I'd say, yeah, I'm back. I would say for me, like it's like businesses like Urban Outfitters, especially, like this is my most recent one where it just frustrates me so much. Like you can, and if we're going back to the whole packaging thing, like you can be given your item in like a black like that's bag that's been recycled. But if you order online, and I know my brother has recently, it comes in a recyclable bag, but then the plastic bags inside that the clothes are inside are not recyclable. So it's like it's like you either go whole hog like 100% or like not at all really. And I think with Urban Outfitters, they've launched a whole like renewable like recycle like it's like they're recycling clothing or whatever, but it's like you're also stocking brands that are like also really unethical, and there's been issues raised about like pay for workers, etc., etc. So I mean, brands need to either be clear and say, yeah, we're either going to be sustainable and we're going to market to this certain audience or not. The quasi kind of half and half doesn't work, especially when you can now be outed on social media.
Yeah, I guess you have to have your house in order. Like we were talking before, weren't we, about like Ben and Jerry's, who like it's part of their brand, even though they're massive and they are owned by Unilever. It's like their heritage and it's their brand. You can't just do that overnight. So like maybe those brands that are kind of caught in the middle, like I guess Urban Outfitters as a premium brand feels like they should be doing it because in a way you can kind of get away with it if you're cheap. But yeah, getting trapped in the middle is tricky. And I guess like we've seen a lot of brands kind of mess up recently, like brands and media. I mean, all of it. I mean, and do you think like I guess are there any like do you think people are less forgiving of brands when they mess up now? So like the idea, the example I used was pretty much every media, as soon as there's a famous black person, they substitute in another famous black person. So Denzel Washington gets subbed in for absolutely everyone. Like, is there a way of, obviously they shouldn't be doing it in the first place, but is there a way of reacting that is better? Or is there, like, do you think that this generation is less likely to forgive you for that sort of mess up?
I think it definitely depends what it is. I think that kind of thing is just, how did it even get through and get published? Who even like would do that? Whereas I think if it's small things like, so a lot of Instagram, so like companies that post on Instagram, I think a lot of them maybe don't show as many like diverse people on their feed. And I think when people call them out and they address it very like, they're very open and honest about it and they're sincere and they want to change, then that's different. Like I think that's okay because they see wrong and they're willing to change. But if you're posting a completely different person, I just don't think that's okay at all.
Yeah. It's like, just going off what she says, like the issue with the BBC when they posted a photo of Kano saying that it was Wiley. It's kind of like mistakes, or when the presenter used the N-word. It's kind of like mistakes like that shouldn't be happening, especially at a tumultuous time like this. So for them to allow that kind of mistake or that kind of issue to pass on is kind of like, you guys need to take accountability for the repercussions you'll be dealing with from that issue, from making that mistake. And our generation will hold them accountable for that mistake. We will remind them and draw them out until they address it and until they apologize.
I think you're
that's just how
completely
I feel.
right. Yeah, I think like it's coming back to that power, isn't it? I guess you've got like in a small group the brands that are doing it well and having some sort of core purpose. The brands that don't give a shit, and then you've got these ones that are in the middle that like consumer pressure is gradually pushing them across. But I guess it's like it's how much like it's very easy to tweet about a brand being terrible, but then actually not shopping that's a very different thing. Coming on to like we talked about media a bit. Do you guys, if you see like a story on in a media, do you guys ever fact check, or do you just take it as it is? Kate, what do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think kind of the situation that I find myself in now, I have a little bit more time. Having like this whole like slope of career and finishing uni. I think in the last week, like I followed like the Marcus Rashford about the child poverty and story quite closely, and about on which supermarkets. I think it was a story in the BBC this week, and I think he's amazing. Like he's used his platform for exactly what young people today support social causes, and it's fantastic what he's done behind it. But it's like the BBC. Like I know myself, like that he worked with Co-op closely, like being Manchester based, etc. Like that was a supermarket that he worked with. And then I saw an article in the BBC, and it literally listed like every other British supermarket other than Co-op, and like you're just like, oh, who's not used their brain, like, and it's like I know that because I follow the story, and it's that continuity and that
Mm.
consistency of media. And I think it's just awareness. Like that's just one example of probably about 50 this week, or like in the past few days alone. And I do fact check. Like
Yeah.
it depends like what type of media you're using, and what like you're looking at specifically. But 100%, I do fact check. Yeah.
Great shout out for one of our clients as well. We love support Co-op all the way.
Not paid.
Yeah. Hashtag ad.
Yeah.
Um, what about you, Kamsi? Do you think it's important to look at second sources, or is it like something that you tend to trust?
I'll be honest and say that I am sometimes I don't fact check. The
Yeah.
moment I see something that sort of hurts me initially, I kind of just think, oh, I mean, it depends on the headline.
Yeah.
If it's something, and it depends on the headline and how I'm feeling in that moment. And
Yeah.
if I'm more liable to take hurt from news such as, okay, Wiley's been banned from all social media, and they put a picture of Kano on there. It at a time when black people are being killed for being black, and you're now kind of saying you support us, but you can't even get simple things as putting a name to a face right,
Yeah.
and things like that hit me more emotionally and hinder my thinking of I should look more into this because I'm just feeling so hurt by it,
Yeah. I guess there's like
and offended.
ultimately, yeah, I guess ultimately no one's offended by them forgetting that Co-op are partnering with Rashford, because obviously we all love them, but ultimately no one really gives a
Yeah,
shit.
yeah,
But like, especially with like the Black Lives Matter movement right now, like you've you can't be fucking up basically, and that's
yeah,
like, I guess, an area where you like about the important content, you're more likely to fact check, aren't you? And look at them.
yeah.
But on the media, like one thing that I was kind of interested to get your take on is it's a pretty bleak time if you work in media right now. Like BuzzFeed have just made loads of people redundant. Guardian have all the mainstream media are making massive redundancies, and that's obviously bad for um, journalists analysing and holding our politicians to account. Is that something that you see as a problem, like, or is it something that you like? Is it something you kind of you worry about, or is it something that is, I guess, it's like just people in London or in the city losing their jobs? It's no different to a banker. Um, Kate, go for it.
Yeah, I can talk to this one. I feel like I take a lot of like social media, like Kamsi said, like with a pinch of salt, unless it like talks to me or it's something that I followed. Like I feel like we've become more of like fake news. Like we have like a
Mm,
tendency to like take everything as fake news until proven otherwise, almost. And it's that kind of reverse. And like obviously with everything that's happened, and I'd never think about it. I think about, oh, those people have lost their jobs. Like obviously that's like a difficult thing, but it's kind of, I wouldn't think about it as like less accountability, etc. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to see where that goes in the future. See if fact checking's more in point and on trend.
I think that must be us time up.
mm.
Lucy.
Yeah, there is. And unfortunately, we don't, because we're on a really tight schedule and we've got people going straight after, we don't actually have time for audience questions, although there are quite a few questions on your talk within the app. So thank you so much, guys. That was a really helpful and insightful session. What a fantastic panel. We really appreciate it. Where can these guys go and find you if they want to talk to you after the event?
Best to add me on LinkedIn. I am on Twitter, but I don't really do it very much. Or you can just drop me an email at simon@hypecollective.co.uk.
Fantastic. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much. We do really appreciate your time. It's been such a great session. Please feel free to answer. There's a lot of questions in the app, so feel free to go through and chat to everybody, tell them your contact details and that kind of thing. And we will catch up with you really soon. Big round of applause for these guys as though they were on the Real Social Day stage. Thank you, guys. Cheers, Simon and Chris.